Good afternoon, traders. This is Christian Promhertz, Tribeca Trade Group, and today is Monday, February 7th, and welcome to your end of day market recap. Theme of the day, well, I'll get to that in just a second. Let me get to the risk disclaimer first. Everything that we're going through is for information purposes only. You could read the whole risk disclaimer here. This video is strictly for education purposes only. Yeah, I mean, I think the theme of the day is the continuous sell the rip, any strength where you're basically thinking that the market is kind of turning and making a move to the high side has been an area just to basically say, hey, I'll sell. And if you're, and really kind of, the analogy that we usually use when you have this type of markets is instead of looking for doubles, triples, and home runs, it is more just a base hit, and even like squeeze like an infield base hit. You're a bunt is basically how this market is working. I find it very challenging. Here's what I wrote this weekend to members. You could read this, but I write these recap, this commentary before I do the weekend video, but I also detailed how to kind of deal with this market right now. And it's right now, there's just in any strength right now, it's you want to be selling into, and in my opinion, right, and trying not to chase any moves. And I think, for example, this morning, before we get into the indices, but you could go through various different names this morning that were up anywhere between 3 to 10% for the day. All of those names were places to sell into. So I find it very difficult to, when I'm noticing, which I shared with members earlier today, is that if you're not buying like in the very, unless you're coming in and you're long already, but this has been more of a day trader's market. So let's talk a little bit about day trading. Usually what I like to do is wait for things to kind of settle down, like after the first 15 minutes. But if you're doing that strategy right now, that's not working. Because you're basically, if you're buying anything, you're doing it on the high of the session. What you have to be doing is basically scouting out some trades and either buying them pre-market or buying them as soon as the market opens and then selling them 10 minutes later. That's the only thing that I really see working, other than trying to scalp here and there in the middle of the day, which is just very difficult to find the names and areas that are moving. So, I think that chart kind of just sums it up, right? We're on a 5-minute bar. Here's the first 9:30, and if you're not buying here, you're sunk. So I think that's very challenging. Like I know Bros was the one that FinTwit was concentrated on over the weekend, right? There's a lot of people talking about this, and I get it, right? I mean, this is one of the few charts that look like, hey, you got to break out of sideways action for a growth name. Now, there's more of this going on in value, but it seems like there's the majority of people don't want to look at value names, and if you are looking at value names, I think that you do have an edge over those that are only looking for growth names, because this market is not about growth names, right? The growth names are few and far between, and really that's where the quick selling has to be done in the growth names. In the value names, you can hold on to them a little bit more right now. They are outperforming. But again, I always go back to, why label yourself as a growth investor right now, when that's just, it's cutting your nose off to spite your face right now, because there are good there are better, I don't want to say good opportunities, but there are better opportunities, and I'll run through some of there. And I'm not trying to say, hey, it's only value. Every day I'm looking for opportunities in growth, right? But they're just not, they're just very few and far between. But yes, so let me finish up the example here in Bros. But again, this one had a nice little move pre-market, and here's the first 10-15 minutes, and if you haven't bought by now, you're sunk, because you buy here or one of these candles, and you got like 30 cents or maybe $1. So again, you got to be really quick with that. But if not, like if you didn't position long into the day, I find that very difficult to buy on the first 5-minute bar and then sell 10 minutes later, and then go home for the day, right? I mean, that's basically it. And the other way, of course, is that you can use this to kind of fade. Those trades are working as well. But I find this price action very difficult, you know, and you have to be an extremely good day trader. Going back to what I do, which is mainly uh, a swing trader, right? Holding positions for anywhere from a couple days to a couple weeks to longer. You really have to kind of, you know, I've been trying to even take little profit targets just so that I can kind of come in when we do get a swoosh down in the market, which we're getting, you know, if not every day, we're getting them quite frequently at some point in the day, either between 10 o'clock, 10 o'clock to 10:30, or it's happening at the end of the day. And that could be, by the way, just the Fed reducing liquidity, right? They're probably in there at this point, doing something, you know, in terms of reducing that balance sheet. I know that they said that they were supposed to be doing it at some times, but it certainly feels like there's an effect, you know, a few times during the day, right? And if you go back to even, this was Friday's action, notice the same type of price action, or similar, I should say, not the same thing. But here's 10:15, swoosh down to about for an hour, right? And then the market builds for a bit, and really built quite nicely on Friday, and then right till about 3:30, and then it moved down. Notice where it started today, right? We got a false move again, and this market's all about the false moves. False move at 10:30 in the morning, first 1 5-minute bar above the value area, then a swoosh down for about an hour and a half, 2 hours, a build back up, and then a decent swoosh down. So very difficult to look for confirmation in this market to say, hey, that's where I'm going to start buying. So let me go through a couple areas of the market. What I also said this weekend, because I kind of stick to this, I view right now that the direction is 50-50. And that means no edge in this market. So it's one of these situations where, now that doesn't mean that that's going to be weeks, you know, even days, weeks, months ahead. I'm just saying right now that that's what I see, and it could change at any time. There could be some data point that changes this and gets institutions to come back in. But I think that right now, the less, if you're trading the less, or if you're doing what I mentioned already with the first 15 minutes, that's basically all there is to do. I don't really see a lot of other trades out there that are having huge success. And I'll go over again, like I said, I'll go over what I'm doing and where I see the strength. But I think it's a very, very difficult market that we're in right now. And hopefully this changes sooner than later, right, in the market. But here's where we are for the S&P. Remember, just to kind of rehash things, and I don't want to go too far back, but remember, we had end of the month portfolio rebalancing into equities, right? We know about that. We also had the first of the month buying, right? And then, as I said last week, I said there won't be the second of the month program buying, right? Where institutions put money to work. It's the first of the month, and sometimes you see these end of month rebalances. That was what was really driving the market. Since then, you could see it's been a mess. It's been start to go higher, sell off, start to go higher. We had one day last week where the Qs were down 4%. Then earnings are you know, in the middle of this too, which is kind of moving things around too, which we'll get more names, you know, obviously that report earnings this week. I want to come back to that in just a second. But for now, we've kind of lost the 20-day moving average, the 5-period moving average. We've lost that as well. And we're back testing this 50-day moving average once again. So, you know, do I think that we could revisit this area? Sure, I do. Do I think that we could come back and go back up to the 50-day moving average? Sure, I think that's possible. What do I favor? I don't favor any of these right now. I think it's 50-50 the way that this market is. So we could also trade in a range for a little while too. Keep in mind, we have the CPI report, which everybody's going to want to hear about the CPI report, just because as if you don't know what inflation is doing right now, but there's inflation everywhere right now. And that report is just going to confirm what we already know, in my opinion. Right. NASDAQ Not as constructive, in my opinion, as the S&P because we are below the 200-day moving average, right? So this is nothing new. We've been talking about this. We talked about this over the weekend. You got support down here, or if you like to use the Qs, we could look at the Qs, but you're going to have some support down here at 347.93, but we're stuck below the moving average with the 200-day moving average, which is not a great place to be. Let me move over to the 1-hour charts because I forgot to do that for S&P. So while I have the Qs up, here's your support for the week, 353.78. Notice we touched there earlier. For now, we're holding it, but that could change. S&P, we're more towards the middle of the range there. Not as much volatility. In fact, the VIX went down today. The VIX is down to down below 30. Below 23 right now. I didn't go over the Russell, but the Russell actually held up quite well today. Was up almost 0.75%, and that's also right in the middle of the valuation. So right in the middle of this week's value area, excuse me. All right, but this is also a mess on the daily chart. So again, one of where I kind of left this off in the weekend video regarding the overall indices is that and some growth names too. I think is you just need more time. Right. You need more time for these indices to kind of back and fill, maybe gain a little bit of support and figure out, a pattern in terms of, hey, are we going to come back and is it going to be more of like a W type pattern? Right. Or is this little bit of a higher low? Are we going to hold this and build off of that? But we don't have that information yet. And I think it's too difficult to really, guess otherwise right now. All right. So one other point, and then I'll talk about where I'm seeing some strength in this market. But I think what's particularly interesting is we're not seeing any follow through from some of the names that had good earnings, right? I thought Google had a great earnings report. Take a look at what Google has done since the day of earnings. It's just been sold off, right? That's not confidence in a name. Microsoft has been a complete mess since they've had earnings too. They haven't done anything, right? And then if we go through some other names too, I thought AMD had a great quarter too. I've been day trading this one here and there. I tried it again today. It didn't work. Again, I was a little bit too late. I was giving the example in the beginning of the video of, hey, if you're not in there right on the first 5-minute bar right now, and again, that's today. That doesn't have to be the situation for tomorrow. But I wasn't. I got in somewhere in here, and that's just too late right now for this market. To chase a name up 1% for the day is a disaster right now. But AMD, and I'm trying to think of a couple other names too. Just Amazon, I think was up on the day, but Amazon, as I went over on Friday, this is Monday, so we don't know what a weekly bar is going to be like by the end of the week. But I have doubts that this thing is going to be able to get above 31.79. It stopped right there on Friday, so I think that's an indication that this thing isn't strong enough to turn the corner. But we'll see. I'll let the price action judge it for me. But for now, it's it couldn't hold today's gains either for this one. All right. So that's what I see, but there are some other things that just continue to act very well. The energy names, which I know everybody kind of thinks that they're I think the consensus is at this point is that they're a bit extended, but something like a Phillips 66 is not extended, right? And this thing continued to move higher. I think that there was some strength in things that started weak that really got going today. Not got going, but held in there. And Alcoa did pretty well. And then if you look at some of the fertilizer names, continue to be the agriculture fertilizer names continue to be pretty strong and constructive, right? They end up doing something different. Sometimes they open up lower, but they actually see money, actually go up over the day. So here's a good one. I think this NTR is interesting as well. Still hasn't gotten over that downtrend line, so could be one to watch for tomorrow. And I think the banks are doing very well too, especially when you look at the smaller banks, the regional banks, right? They ended up 0.5% today, but you could see they're not having those whippy moves. I try to look for things that are doing something a little bit different. And, Morgan Stanley didn't hold the gains for the day, but, it's close. It's close to breaking out. And I know it's a tough market to have breakouts in, but I would be watching a Morgan Stanley. I actually did start a position in this one today, and then I actually added a little bit to the close. But that's what it's all about right now, is like just starter positions, and then when there's weakness, as long as there's support, right, then you can kind of look to add into that support. But not everyone is going to hold support. I was looking at Mastercard coming into today, right? Mastercard did not hold support, right? So it's got to get above 382. And this looks too similar to this candle. Now, again, we don't know if it's going to resolve itself back down, but if it can't get back above 381.78, which is the top of the February valuary, then it's no good. You put it in the pile of the rest of the stocks that aren't acting well. So I have no position in this one, but I'm watching, and I think, again, it's better to be watching right now than doing anything else. AbbVie, again, I'm just taking like these little targets in AbbVie because it's tough to find a name that just continues to do this, and I've hit like 3 targets and within $5. But it's so hard to find a name that is just continuing to move. STZ, I tried this one about a week ago. It hasn't turned the corner yet, so I'll wait. That was kind of a preemptive trade, I think, when it started to do this. And unfortunately, it didn't have any follow through. So I'll look to get back involved. Bristol Myers is also, again, low volatility type name, but if you're just looking for like a quick dollar and then just move on to something else. Again, I know it's not exciting and not easy to put on a trade looking for only like a small amount, but there's a VPOC up here right around $67. And I think there's one here as well, $67. So this is the stuff that's working. You could see it didn't really sell off at the end of the day. And for now, like if you could kind of keep yourself busy, if you're staying in front of the screens right now and not doing something like skiing or not going somewhere on vacation and trying to kind of, manage through this type of difficult market right now, you could try to take something like this to keep yourself busy, and just, even though it's $1, at least getting the target, moving on, and keeping that muscle memory of trading, as well as, and the last thing I'll say in this video too is that if you are doing well with the day trading, then continue to do what you're doing. If you're that fast and could take the trades off, put them on and take them off in 10 minutes, then continue to do what you're doing. All right, so that's it. I think I have a couple other names to mention, but I've also been, if you're obviously, if you're watching this video and you're not a member or whatever, I'm just mainly, talking about things, and putting out videos for members. I'm not putting much on Twitter these days because I'd rather just not talk just to talk. I think that there's too many things that I think are just up in the air in terms of the price action. So if there's not anything really interesting to talk about, I kind of just stay silent and wait for something that is important, right? Rather than just tweet to tweet. But I think there's a lot of people that are just doing that right now, which I get it. Maybe there's muscle memory in the tweeting too, but I'll get more active on Twitter when I see more things that are to trade. And if you are not in that camp of being able to do those really fast day trades, right, where you're in and out of 5 or 10 minutes, then the best thing that you could be doing right now, I think, is sitting on your hands to some extent. All right. I mentioned Morgan Stanley and I mentioned the banks, but I think, just to give you a couple examples, here's what the regional bank ETF is doing. Again, it's trying, right? It's not showing any huge momentum to it, but it's trying. And if you look at some of these names, like I like the Key Corp, right, which was up about 1%. Again, this is not a barn burner of a name, but if you look, you could see that there's a pattern going on, right? Fifth Third Bank Corp is another one, right? Was up 2% today, right? So there are pockets of strength. They're just they're in areas that are not popular, right? Because there's too many of these other names, right, that are just going up and then they give it all back, right? Affirm was one that I was watching today too, right? And many of these things are being very methodical, right? They'll get up to where they're supposed to break out and then they fail, right, on the first hour of the day. Tesla was another one too that I wanted to watch going into the week, right? Look at where this thing got to, right, to the top of value. And I was watching it. I'm like, hey, I might chase a little bit and try a trade here if it can get above 938. But you could see as soon as that 1 hour bar closed, it immediately sold off there and just never returned to the breakout area of where it needs to turn the corner. All right, guys, thanks for watching. Again, well, not a positive video for the day, but it is what it is with this market. You can't force it to kind of get out of this, this price action that it's in, and you just have to be patient, right? And try to outlast it, and try not to, get your confidence too damaged while this choppiness is going on. All right, guys, have a great night. See you tomorrow.